Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome to part 2 of our 5-part series called Investing 101. Again, there was a lot of demand for this. There's a lot of people out there who are new. The average age of my viewer is 33 years of age, still 93% male. And there's been a lot of demand for people to ramp up because a lot of people are jumping into the market with both feet in the crypto world, cryptoverse, whatever you want to call it. And they are beginning to sometimes make mistakes. And part of this whole reason for this channel is to help people build a path to financial freedom. Math, money, freedom. And that's why we're here. So a big thank you as well to all the subscribers. But this is part 2. So financial literacy is the second chapter of the must-haves to be a proficient investor. Now, I scoured the internet looking for content around this to see if there's any good content, and there wasn't. But it is a very, very important chapter, and let me explain why. So the way I look at financial literacy, it's like an 8-cylinder engine. And if you have one of those cylinders misfiring, you could get into very hot water and you could lose everything. So we're going to walk through what I believe the 8 cylinders are for financial literacy. So we'll start with the basics, the first 5 parts. First of all is motivation. You have to be motivated, you have to be driven to be able to pull this off. You can't just go in a haphazard way. Number 2 is budgeting. Even though you may hate spreadsheets, it's very important to make a budget, and there's lots of really cool tools out there to help you do that. Number 3 is habits. You need good habits, and I'll talk about some examples there as well. Number 4 is debt management. Get your debt under control. Very, very critical. And number 5 is savings. They are the first 5 steps. Now, the 3 that come afterwards are number 6, investments. Some of you are jumping headlong into investments, in very risky investments, without really taking into account the other 7 cylinders. Number 7 is a retirement plan, and a lot of you follow this channel because you're interested in that freedom, being able to retire, being able to live instead of working 60 hours a week. And number 8 is risk management, the most important thing. And I'll talk about some examples that could derail a whole program very quickly. So it's important to be aware of risk. So there are the 8 chapters, and I'm going to go through each one in great detail with some examples. So first of all, motivation. You need to be driven. And a good way to be driven is to understand what the rich do and sometimes what the people without as much money do. I don't like the word poor. So if you look at the rich, they have typically several sources of income, not just one. They don't work for a W-2. And they invest a lot. A lot of their earnings go straight back into investments. And they focus on making profits and leveraging debt, but the proper way. And I'll talk a bit about that later as well. And to make money, you must have financial literacy. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Now, for the less fortunate, they typically have one source of income, and they use a lot of that to spend it on liabilities. They incur too much debt. It could be car debt, house debt, etc. And oftentimes, they use debt to buy liabilities. Think about that for a second. Taking on more debt to take on more debt. And that is the problem. And these people as well typically don't have time to learn, don't have time to invest, to become free. And that's very important to remember. The name of the game, you've heard it all before. Time is money. If you have no time, your problem. So it's all about buying your time back. It's the only thing we can't control in this life. So that's the motivation. And you have to have the motivation. And if that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will. So second one, budgeting. There is an age-old rule. This is what they call the 50-30-20 rule. And of course, people can modify it. But think about half of your income needs to go towards your needs. Housing, rent, food, groceries, transportation, bills, utilities, maybe medical expenses, medical insurance. That would be half. And of course, this is all after-tax money. Then your wants. It's important as well for us all to live. We shouldn't just work and not enjoy ourselves. So things like dining out, shopping, entertainment, travel. And I know many of you, I'm going to step out for a second, Many of you have seen dramatic changes in your budgets and your spending habits because of the C-19 situation. People that used to spend thousands of dollars every month in restaurants, that went away. Movie theaters went away. Vacation went away. So now it's a very different world. And I believe this big kind of the pandemic enforced reset has brought about some good habits as well. And I'll talk more about a few as well. But let's jump back into this. And of the last 20%, that should be dedicated towards savings and an emergency fund and loan repayment. It's very important to get out of the debt hole, which I will talk a bit about in a minute as well. So a very simple way, think about budgeting, think about those ratios, and start making a plan and enforcing that plan. Now, the third habit is habits. It's very important to have discipline. I happen to like spreadsheets and numbers, so I've been building budgets for over 3 decades. And sometimes as well, one thing I did in the past, a long time ago, I actually built a budget and I showed my boss, and I used that to justify a raise, and it worked. So think about that. Now, it's also very important to live below your means and pay off debt, especially high interest debt. If you do not pay off high interest debt, and I'm talking about debt that is 12%, 15%, 18% more, you'll never get out from that hole. So you have to focus on getting rid of that. That's like a cancer that will eat you alive. So make sure you get rid of that high interest debt first. Also, automate your finances. There's cool tools out there. Mint, Quicken, Personal Capital, all of these sites that are available that will help you understand exactly where you are spending your money. It's also very important to have an emergency fund available, because you never know when that rainy day could happen. It could be a medical emergency. It could be a family emergency. But there are times when you need to be able to dip into that emergency fund and use it before you incur additional costs. Sometimes it's very important to stem the tide, stop the bleeding, as it were. I hate to use that type of term, but that's what that emergency fund is for. And then, of course, invest. A lot of you are investing very heavily. A lot of young people today have really gotten the crypto bug, and they understand it, and they're doing very well from it. But again, remember risk as well, and I'll talk a bit about that as well in a few slides. And credit score. Understand what your credit score is, and if it has a problem, fix it. Because later in life, it's going to be very important to be able to borrow money. And if your credit is damaged, that's going to impede that ability. And then you won't be able to scale, you won't be able to buy a good house, etc. And time is money. Don't waste your time. That could be simple things like commuting for 2 hours a day. Don't do it. Avoid it. That's a waste of life. If you add up those hours and loss of productivity for all that commute over the space of a year, it's very, very bad. So that's habits now. I'm going to go a little bit into a simple example of how a habit can cost $100,000. A very simple habit. So this is a little coffee calculator I put together. And if you imagine a cup of coffee is $3.50. Now for me, I used to buy venti coconut lattes at Starbucks, and they're about $5.50 each, $5.25. And I drink 3 or 4 of them a day, and I'd buy a sandwich. So I was spending at least $25 a day at Starbucks. This is a very conservative example. Now, your coffee calculator, your cost of your coffee at home, 25 cents. Cost of coffee at Starbucks, say $3.50. You're drinking 2 cups a day. I used to drink 4, but we'll say conservatively 2 cups a day. That's 14 a week. And you do this for 25 years. And assuming you get at least 4% return on investment from money saved, your 10-year savings of drinking coffee at home or making a big mug at home is $28,000 in 10 years. And over 25 years, that's $98,873. That is huge. Now, imagine being young and having that habit. And there's way more crass examples. You could have a cell phone bill that costs $90 a month instead of one you could get for $25 or $30. It all does the same thing. But just a simple coffee example, I want you to understand that certain habits are very expensive. And in investment, time in the market is what counts and what matters. So think about that too. So debt management, another very important area. We're on item number 4, is profile all your debt Pay off your high interest debt first, refinance when you can, and beware of credit cards, and beware of missing a payment, because then they jack your rates immediately. This is all stuff you all know, but even though people know it, they don't live by these rules. And of course, make a debt plan, a debt repayment plan, and integrate it into your budget. And be disciplined and set a goal. Say, I want to pay off all my debt within 12 months, and just work towards it. And once you've gotten rid of your debts, then you can start investing in revenue generating assets, which is way more fun. So, quick wake-up call. This was an interesting infographic. Basically, 8% of millennials understand basic financial concepts. That means 92% don't, which is a problem. And also, of all the different generations we have in the US, I don't know how it is in other parts of the world, but millennials have the lowest credit scores. And the average student debt, 70% of students graduate with $30,000 in loans, some an awful lot more. I know people with $300,000 in loans, and nearly 40% of them have credit card debt. So just some interesting stats out there. People need to get more disciplined, need to get more financially literate, need to get rid of their debt, etc. All obvious stuff we know. So let's talk a bit about savings. The important thing about savings is establish target savings from your budget. I mentioned 20%, etc. But also remember, things like cost reductions is a saving. You could save $50 easily on your cell phone bill every month. That over years and years is huge. Cut your cable, pay for YouTube or something instead of having a cable TV bill. People don't understand how all this stuff really adds up. Also, make sure you have that emergency fund, I'm reminding you again, and save automatically. Make sure that's what happens. It's like paying a bill. Make sure you pay your savings account just like a bill. Start small. Start with $10 a week, $50 a week, €20 a week, whatever you can, wherever you are, and lock it away. Number 6 is very important. Make sure you can't touch it and grab it. You might say, I'm going to go to Las Vegas for the weekend. I'm going to pull my savings out and play them on a casino table. That is not a good plan. When your savings are locked away, make sure they are locked away, and be very disciplined around this. And of course, save for retirement as early as possible. Remember compounding. If you've seen any of my other videos, compounding is powerful. Go back to the Starbucks example. A $3 saving per coffee is $100,000 after 25 years. Just coffee. Forget cigarettes, alcohol, nightclubs, cell phone bills, all that other good stuff. All right, number 6, investments. Here we start getting into the more interesting stuff. Invest in yourself first. Education. Remember, I always say this is a zero-sum game. It's you against the machine. It's you against professionals. Don't be too big-headed. Be humble and just get educated and understand exactly what suits you. And remember also, time in the market beats timing the market. The longer you are invested, the better you are off. And pick the right horses in the right spaces. We are in a very transformational time right now, so it's a lucky time to get educated and identify exactly which stocks are going to perform really well over the next 5 years, which cryptos. And again, a wonderful time to be an investor, as long as you're investing in the right things. And never invest more than half of your liquid capital. Very important. And understand the relationship between alpha and beta. And I've talked about that as well. And of course, risk management is core to any investment strategy. Now, when I mentioned risk management and beta, alpha is the return and beta is the risk that you take on. And you might be in a cryptocurrency that's gone up 300% in 2 weeks. That's great. But remember, it's also very high risk. And there'll come a time where things may come crumbling down. So be careful of that. So retirement plan, number 7, understand your time horizon. Now, what I mean by that is, say, for example, you set yourself a goal. I know I set myself a goal to be retired before I was 50. And there's personal reasons for that. But, what's the point in working your whole life when you don't have time to really enjoy it? So make a time horizon. Find out when you need to retire. Determine your needs and for how long you need to retire. And I've made some videos on how to retire in Ethereum and Bitcoin across different geographic locales. So check those videos out too. Calculate tax implications. And if tax implications are bad where you are, maybe think about moving to another location and draw a line in the sand and be disciplined. So I say you want to make that goal of retiring by 50 or 60 or 62 or whatever the age may be, and make it happen. Be very, very disciplined. Wake up every morning with that plan in place, and then you will be able to pull it off. If you don't focus on it, it's not going to happen. Finally, point number 8, and I can't stress this enough, risk management. Forecast the future. Understand exactly where things are going. So imagine you have a fixed pension and the cost of living is going up by 15% per year, but your rent is 60% of your fixed pension and 40% is food and medical, etc. If prices are going up by 15% and your fixed income is not, you're going to be in trouble. So it's very important as well to understand the macro environment and where things are going, and have assets that generate perpetual income that also grow and outpace inflation. So I'm going to step out for a second, but things like rental properties are extremely good to have. You get tax write-offs. The asset grows in value and it spits off cash flow all the time. That grows, that you can index rent over time as well. So very, very important asset to have as part of your portfolio, not just stocks. Again, think multiple income streams. Think about what the rich people do. And finally, think about debilitators. So for example, a health crisis. Have your risk transfer or risk mitigation in place. I know families that have been destroyed by things like cancer and medical bills that weren't covered by insurance. Always be paranoid. Always think about what could go wrong and protect yourself from that to make sure it doesn't crush your life savings, because that can happen as well. So in conclusion, real quick, as usual, thank you for being here. Till then, Cliff Notes from every book on financial literacy. There's 3 basic things you learn is spend less than you earn, real simple. Make the money you have work for you. All right? Remember, time is of the essence. And don't use all your time working for the man or for a paycheck. And be prepared for the unexpected. Make sure you have that risk management in place. Very, very key. There is a financial fitness test out there. Just Google DCU Financial Wellness Calculator. It's a cool little tool. It'll show you how you benchmark against people in your age group, in your area, how much savings you should have, how much debt you should have, etc., and all these usual ratios. And when you make your retirement plan, how much you need to have to retire. And it's a great little tool to be able to forecast exactly what you need, and then you can plan around that. Like I tried to do with some of my retire in Bitcoin, retire in Ethereum videos. How much do you need? Where are you going to live? What is the purchasing power, cost of living, inflation, etc.? Really cool little test you can do there as well for yourselves. And finally, improve your financial literacy. Nobody knows everything. And I said, we are an 8-cylinder engine. Even the most savvy investors could have one cylinder that's not firing, which could be catastrophic for the whole plan. So to improve your financial literacy, subscribe to this channel. Of course, I have to plug this. Keep a budget and be disciplined. Listen to financial podcasts, read personal finance books, subscribe to thought leaders on social media, and of course, as always, make a plan, make that line in the sand, say something, I want to retire by 55 or 60 or 50 or 45 or move somewhere else. And that's it, real simple. Thanks all. Hope you like this stuff. If you do, hit the like and subscribe. Take care, everybody.